Hello everyone, my name is Samuel Bondo. Welcome to our introduction to programming class. So this session is actually for those of our students who missed the online session of this course. So I'm doing this as a recap. We are going to cover some specific aspects that were discussed within our live section, and we are also going to look at some practical aspect that we did as well. So not to waste our time, let's go into our lesson. So we are going to look at introduction to programming, and specifically we are going to look at the C++ programming language, which is very important. So the outline of our course, we are going to talk about programming. We are going to look at the evolution of programming languages. We are going to discuss the characteristics of C++ as a programming language, and we are also going to look at the history of the C++ programming language. But we are not going to focus on much theoretical aspect, so we are going to just do a quick recap, and if the time permit, we can be able to do some practices. So before understanding programming, we have to know what is the meaning of programming. So programming is something that is very important. So we know that computers cannot perform any tasks that are not predefined, or any tasks that have not been built that a computer should do. And then programming has to deal with predefined instructions that are going to tell the computer on what to do. So predefined simply means things that are already been set up that the computer should be able to do or carry on. So that aspect of the computer doing it, aspect of instructions, it is what we classify as program or programming. A computer does not have enough creativity, like I said, to make tasks which it has not been programmed for. So computer cannot do anything that have not been predefined within it, or thing that it has not been instructed to do, or thing that have not been placed in it to do. It is not going to do it. So those in the process of making the computer to do these things, they are what we call programmers, or we call them what coder, because they are going to run some codes. Code has to do with things that the computer can understand. The computer cannot understand the languages that we speak or write in. So therefore, computer has to receive information or language that it is going to understand. In that process, it is what we call programming. So languages that computer understand normally, it will be written in binary numbers and other things. So look at the evolution of programming languages. A programming language is a set of instructions that order computers on what to do. So set of instructions, these are predefined instructions. Instructions have been set up for them to use. So it is going to guide the computer on what to do. So the computer is not going to do anything that it has not been built to do. So when choosing a programming language to make a project, many different considerations can be taken. First, one must decide what is known as the level of the programming language. So you firstly have to understand the programming language that you want to use. What is it capable of doing? What is the level of that programming language? Is it something that is going to interact directly with the hardware aspect or the hardware component of the computer? So you have to take a lot of things into our considerations before choosing our programming language. So we say high-level code is more portable. That means it can work in more different machines with a smaller number of modifications, whereas a low-level language is limited by the peculiarities of the hardware which it was written for. So normally There are some programming languages that are not going to perform some hard tasks or some hard performances that you want them to do. So in choosing or selecting a programming language, you have to take all of these things into our considerations. So like for the C++ programming language, it is a programming language that perform hard tasks or it has hard performance, and it is used nowadays in a lot of our settings. So for the C++ programming languages, it is used even in our operating system, like for the Windows operating system. So C++ is also used into a lot of embedded systems like our smart TV, our watches, and a lot of things. So C++ is very well essential when it comes to our larger projects, and it is even what more workable when it comes to our smaller projects as well. So it fits in all of these settings. So looking at an example here, we say when a hardware driver program is developed for an operating system, obviously a very low level is used for programming. While when big applications are developed, usually a higher level is what chosen, or a combination of what critical parts written in low-level languages and others in higher ones. So it is important also to take this into consideration. Looking at this one example, so there are some programming languages that will interact directly with the hardware, like I said, when it comes to what C programming. So it is very important to have to consider all of these things into consideration. So we say the C++ language is in a middle position. So the C++, like normally I'm emphasizing on it, it is what in the middle of what the computer, meaning it is going to interact directly with what the hardware component, and it is going to work with no limitations. So there is no hindrance that is going to be created. So it makes it to be what very high in performance. Looking at some of the characteristics, what are some things that the C++ is noted for? What are some things that it is built within the C++? So these are some of the things that you all can be able to agree on. Looking at what the portability, normally it is important to consider that you can practically compare the same C++ code in any type of what computers that in what operating system with our hardly making any what changes. So you are going to have to work with the C++ in what different what machines, and then there is going to be what not much changes, or there's going to be what no changes that you are going to make. So it make it to be what very well portable. So C++ is also what important. Why? Because you don't need to what to write a very longer length of code. So like other programming languages that you have to write a bucket of code just for the simple thing that you want to do. C++ is now in that manner. So it is something that is very unique, that you can be able to interact and write code in a short form for the specific thing that you want to do. So it is also used for a lot of things, like looking at the object-oriented programming that we are going to be discussing in some of our subsequent lessons. It is important to know that C++ also fit in this category. And C++ it is also compatible. So when it comes to compatibility, know that C++ fit in this range. C++ also deals with very high speed, so it is not a programming language that is going to cause you to encounter a lot of difficulty when it comes to our speed. So this has to do with none of the functional requirement of what the C++ programming languages. So we are going to look at functional and non-functional requirements also in our subsequent lessons. So looking at the history, it is important that we also read the history of our C++ programming languages that we are not going to waste our time on. So this also is important to consider that Bechen was able to upgrade some of the features or most of the feature when it comes to what is C programming languages, and upgrading them definitely it will able to what to add a lot of advanced feature, advanced functionalities that is making what is C++ programming languages today. So the C++ it is just an extension of what is C programming language, but remember, being an extension is more is more advanced than what the C programming language. So in getting started with C++, we have to consider that a C++ program is a combination of group of what instructions. So it has to do with instructions that are made of what constants, variables, and that are what keyword. So these are the basis building block of what the C++ programming language that we have to take into consideration, and we are going to to dive in each of the keywords or in each of the terms in terms to come. Or in our next lesson, we are going to be looking at our constants, we are going to look at variables, and we are also going to look at some of the keywords that are being used in C++. So looking at the structure of our simple C++ program code. So looking at the simple structure of our C++ program, normally we are going to look at what is source code. So for the source code, this aspect or this portion is what we are classifying as what a code. So the source code is is a programming aspect, the code that we are running within the compiler. So the code there that is going to be used for a specific task, it is what we classify as what is source code. And after writing our code, we are getting what our intended output. So the output is a result that we are seeing here now. So we are going to look at every line of codes that we are seeing here. So the first one that we are seeing here, the 2 forward slashes. So the 2 forward slashes, normally in the C programming languages, we consider this for our comment. So in other programming languages, you might encounter this saying forward slashes for comment. Remember that for every compiler or every development environment, they have different way of considering certain things. So the comment line might be different when it comes to other programming languages as well. So for this, in this C++, the 2 forward slashes, they are for comment. So comment are like statement, or they are like things that we place within our code, and then telling the compiler to not be able to or telling the text editor or our program to not display this particular line. So like for example, I'm using some formulas in my code and I want to explain that maybe to other developers, or maybe that if I'm trying to visit my code in terms of I will remember what I use a particular section for. So I'm going to say, oh yes, this is a formula maybe in developing a certain route, or in developing certain situation. So the code is not going to, or that particular section is not going to be displayed, but rather it is going to be embedded within your code, that for every time you are trying to carry on testing or you are trying to review your code, you can be able to see that particular section that is serving as an explanation to you. So it is important that comment cannot be displayed. So the second portion we are looking at, it is header that we are looking at. So for the pound sound or this hash that we are seeing here, it is normally used for the directive for the processor. So the hash include, it is a library that we are using within the C++. And then for this IO stream is also important. It is going to tell the processor to include the IO stream standard file, and then the IO stream, that the I stand for the input and I stand for the output, and the screen now, it is a screen that is going to be included within your programming. So it is important to include this section before getting started with any other portion in your C++. But for For the new version of C++, normally we don't use a .h, but for the older version, normally we use a .h. But nowadays we don't really use a .h because remember, these text editor or this programming environment, uh, they are trying to upgrade, they are trying to extend, and they are trying to modify some things. So we might not really be using the .h, but rather we just use the word the IO stream. And then looking at the third aspect, which is a main function. So the int main there is about a main function. So the main function is a point by where all C++ programs start their execution. It does not matter whether there are other functions with other names defined before or after it. So the main function normally is the section that other your programming aspect you are consider. So there can be other functions, and then there are other code that you might run after or you might run before the main function. But what is within the main function, it is what normally we consider, or the program is going to consider to print out. So the main function is very important, and for every function, and we are going to be looking at function in time to come. So every function normally we see we see the close, we see the opening, and other the end parenthesis. So normally they indicate that hey, this is our function, and we are going to learn more about function. Now looking at our curly braces, it is important also. So the curly braces, it is important, and now the body of the main function is enclosed in braces, and then the braces are what we call the curly braces. What is contained within these braces is what the function does when it is executed. So when it is executed, for everything that, for example, if you want this to run anything, know that the main function, it is opening these curly braces and then closing it, telling you that hey, everything that will be within these two curly braces that we are seeing here, therefore definitely they are considered, and these are what, or they are what will be executed within your program. So it is important to include this after your main function. And the next one we have is the C out, and we are seeing two less than sound that we are classifying the, or normally in mathematics I think we call this inequality sign, but for this we are using a less than sound, which is also a mathematical term. So now, and we are seeing now hello world. So for the C out, we say this line is our C++ statement. A statement is a simple or compound expression that can actually produce some effect. Now the C out represents what is standard output stream. So normally this C out, it is what telling the compiler, or is telling the computer, hey, what we are writing here, it is what we want to be seen out. It is for what the output, it is a message that will be sent out that our users can be able to see. So definitely it is important that we include this, which has to be for what the standard output stream in C++. So it is important, and whenever you are trying to make an output, know that you have to use these two less than simples, and after that we have a pair of quotation, and then we have the open quotation, in other words the close quotation, telling our program that hey, these were not declared, they were not declared in our program, but we want them to be print out. So we have to wrap these two quotations around them, and then we have the opening quotation, and that this close quotation. And like for rules in English, C++ is also built with a lot of rules. So whenever you are ending a statement, definitely you have to put a semicolon, or when you are in a particular line of code within C++, you have to include you have to include a semicolon telling the program that, hey, we are stopping here. This is what the end of the section, or this is the end of this particular line. So definitely it is going to consider this as the end. If not, we are going to encounter an error. So I think we have explained that already. Now we have the return 0. So the return 0, which is very important, the return statement, it is important. So the return statement causes the main function to finish. Return may be followed by a return code. So in our example, we are using 0 as our return code. So meaning we are telling the program to check if there's any error in our code that we have maybe we have run or we have tapped. So the program is going to check, or the compiler is going to check for any error during the period of our execution. If there is any error, automatically the code is not going to run. So the goal is that the compiler or the program should check, and then there should be 0 error. But if there is any error that is going to be other than 0, meaning we are saying that there should be no error, but if there is error, automatically your program is not going to run, and the program is going to tell you where is the error coming from, and until you correct that error, your program is not going to run. So now these are the steps when it comes to compiling your program, or trying to the basic setup of your C++ program as well. So you should be able to provide you should be able to edit the source code. There should be code that you are going to implement, and then after the editing of your source code, or after implementing or tapping your code, automatically you should be able to compile. So compile means you are going to transform it into a language that or it is going to transform into a language that the computer can understand, and after doing that, it is going to have to link it with other files. So there are other object files that it is going to have to link it to, and automatically after that your program is going to run. So these are just the steps. So now after that, we have now an exercise that we are going to implement in our C++ programming language. So for this section, I think you are aware that we are using application that we have already installed. So if you are part of this class, know that we have already installed this application, which is the dev C++. So the dev C++ application is what we are going to use. So you are going to open your application and then follow every step that we are about to implement. So I'm now trying to open my application. So this is the dev C++ that we are using. So they have older version, but this is a new release version. This is version 6.3, which is very, very good. But there are other versions that we can also use as well. So if you have that, we can also use it. It is going to work. So in here now, we are going to come to File, and then we are come to New, and then come to our new source file. And now we come to a very plain page, or a blank page that we are going to work on. So like we have seen already, or we are already read on our theoretical aspect, we have the header that we are going to use, using the pound sign or the hash sign that we are going to include. So like I told you, we are not going to use a .h. Why? Because normally it's for the older version, and we have been upgraded and we don't want to use it portion again. So definitely we are going to take it from there. And then another one that maybe I might not discuss is the namespace. So we are going to include using namespace .std. So now this is going to serve as a part of our program that is going to allow the compiler to consider, hey, we don't want to be repeating certain portion. But before then, if we are not going to include this, then we have to be using things like this. For every time we want to output. So whenever we say cout, remember we are going to include this, and then it is going to be like a repetition. We are going to include it always. So we are telling the program, hey, we don't want to include a portion all of the time. So we are just using this standard namespace or using namespace to make the computer or the compiler to know, hey, this is for to avoid this portion. And then, like we said, we have to declare our main function. And after declaring the main function, we have to put our curly braces, the opening in our curly braces. So for this def, whenever you are trying to include something, automatically it is going to have the opening and the closing if it is something that requires that. So since we need this opening and this closing curly braces, when we tap the curly braces, automatically it will be open and it will be closed, and then we can create space. So remember, all of our coding will be within this main function. So this is a main function. We have to take this into consideration. And now these are the two curly braces. This is the opening and this is the closing curly brace. So we are going to do our coding within this function. And doing this, it is important to know that we have to close the curly braces and we have to return 0. So return 0 and then close with semicolon. So now we want to start our project, or we want to start our coding. So for this, remember we have been given a task. To include this. My name is, and we just put a blank line. So we want to implement this particular program. So in order to do this now, so we are doing a very simple program. So this is a very simple program that we are doing, very simple one. So normally we start with our hello world, but we want to follow this exercise in order to print that portion that is giving us. So in order to do that, we can just say cout. Remember, this is for our output. So the CR is for our output screen. So we want this portion to be seen, or we want it to be displayed, that our user can see it, or to be displayed for the graphical user interface. We want to do that. After doing that, we include a pair of quotation, opening and closing quotation. So now we have the opening quotation, have a closing quotation. So in the center here, or between them, we want to now implement what we want to be seen out. So we want to now put my name. My name is. So in order to avoid putting a blank, maybe we can just use our name. We can use our name. No problem. My name is blank, or let me use my name. My name is Samuel Bondo. So this is my name, and after that, remember we told you for every ending of your code you have to put a semicolon. So automatically now I just included a semicolon, and definitely if I run this program first, it is going to ask me to save this file. So it is trying to link, like we said in the previous steps, to link it to our other object file. So I have to save this file, and after that, automatically it is going to tell me if there is an error or not. If there is no error, it is going to run, and it will be able to give me an output. But I have a lot of space here, I can delete them. It is not a problem anyway. Really, any space and no problem here for this portion. So I want to run this. So I will come here, and for here you see compile and run. I can click on it, or on my keyboard is seeing a suggestion to press F7, so F11 rather. So I can press F11, or I can just click on this, and they will ask me to save my file. So I can name my file. So I can see I can just give any name to it. Let me use my own name somewhere. Samuel Bondo, and I can save. And after saving, you are going to see what the result. So that wait, it is comparing. It's comparing. You can see the result. This is our result of our code that we just run. As you can see here, my name is Samuel Bondo. This is the result. This is the result. So guys, that is all for this lesson.